Good morning, everyone. We'll call this meeting to order. Members of the public are invited to participate in the meeting of council by attending the meeting in person at the council chamber at the municipal office located at 10227 Ilderton Road. Members of the public may also access the meeting, which will be live streamed on our Middlesex Center YouTube channel by contacting the municipal clerk to receive a registration link to join the meeting electronically. I have one opening remark, and it's with great pleasure I get to share this with everyone. As I begin, I wanted to take a moment to recognize our CEO, Michael DeLullo, for his leadership among the municipal administrators across Ontario and the nation. In May, Michael was elected as chair of the board of Ontario Administrators Association. This group represents CEOs from across Ontario and promotes good governance by encouraging excellent in leadership, know-how, and professional management of municipalities. And last week, Michael was recognized by the Canadian Association of Municipal Administrators for his 20 years of service in the municipal leadership role. The president of the association remarked that the dedication and steadfast service of Michael and other long-standing administrators have helped shape resilient, thriving communities. Congratulations to Michael. We are fortunate to have such a seasoned professional in CEO in the seat at Middlesex Center. Congratulations, Michael.
Thank you.
There are no additions to the agenda. Oh, sorry. Yep. This time we'll do the land acknowledgement.
Thank you, Chair. The municipality of Middlesex Center recognizes that we are gathering on the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, and Lenni Lenape peoples. We acknowledge the enduring presence of First Nation, Métis, and Inuit people on this land and are committed to moving forward in the spirit of reconciliation and respect. Our neighboring First Nations communities, which continue to live as sovereign nations, include the Chippewa of the Thames First Nation, Oneida Nation of the Thames, and Munsee Delaware Nation.
There are no additions to the agenda. I will look to council for disclosure of pecuniary interest if anyone has one. Seeing none, we'll move on to our first delegation today, and that's members of the Boys and Girls Club of London, Arden McLean and Whitney Brown. If you'd like to come up to the microphone and you can do your presentation. Just hit your mic and I'll get you going there.
Thank you. I'll just start. My name is Arden McLean and I'm the manager of program services with BGC London. And I'm Whitney Brown. I coordinate the role programs for BGC London. So yeah, I'm excited to share with you about what we've been doing over the past year and give you a bit of a progress report. So we can flip to the next slide there. So just to kind of start off, we wanted to share that over the past year, we've been able to engage 746 children and youth in our role programming in Middlesex Center. So that's a very big number that we're really excited about. That's been through sport programming, recreation, whether that be arts, cooking, baking, life skills, challenge activities, outdoors, indoors, all the things. So yeah, 746, which is great. So a big part of how we figure out what type of programming we can bring to Ilderton, specifically at the youth center, is establishing what the community needs. We don't want to replicate services. We don't want to try and provide something that is already being offered. So figuring out what's needed and how we can help support that need. So with that, we have been able to provide a range of programs across many different age groups, starting at like 4 years old for our camps, all the way up to high school age, 18 years old, depending on the type of programming. So supporting active living through our sport programming, we have Next Level Sports program through BGC London that offers gymnastics, volleyball, basketball, and soon to be ball hockey, which is really cool. All of our programs work to promote lifelong learning. One thing I really try to reiterate in my programming is that it takes time to learn skills, and it's not an instant thing. So making sure that learning is a process, and it's part of everything we do in our programming. We also work to make sure that we emphasize community engagement. We want to make sure that the children and youth who are coming to our programs have a sense of ownership over what they're doing and feel that they can really contribute to the programming that's being offered, which again kind of goes with community need, ensuring that what we're offering is what they want to participate in and they're excited to be a part of it. And then moving forward, we are really focusing on looking at a model that supports economic development and sustainability, which I'll share a bit more about that in a couple slides. But yeah. So just looking at in the next couple weeks, even what we're going to be offering in Ilderton, we're going to be starting a program called Skill for Success. It's an employment program that supports youth who aren't quite old enough to be getting their first job, but are looking for experiences to build up their resume and feel prepared for when that first job opportunity comes to them. So what this program does, it provides them with some trainings, some skill building workshops leading up to the summer. And then once summer starts, they can volunteer within our programs. We'll help them build their resume, access interviews, all those types of things, so that come September next school year, they'd be prepared to either work with us if they are interested in doing that, or with another employer. We also looking at doing something called activations, where we go into high schools and meet the students in the school, provide them with volunteer opportunities in the school so they can really check off that 40-hour requirement. We're also looking at doing some co-ops starting next year, offering some really valuable co-op experiences for high school youth within our programming. Not even necessarily with children and youth programming, but allowing them to explore maybe social media content creation or digital arts creation, that kind of thing, ensuring that we're catering to the skills they really want to develop and how we can support them best to do that. We are always taking volunteers, offering high schools volunteer hours to work in our programs or volunteer in our programs or in our summer camps or PD day camps. And we've been working with SHSM classes to provide them with workshops and trainings as well. Looking ahead at summer, we have our summer camps happening. There'll be a summer camp running out of the Ilderton Community Center for children. And then we also have our summer youth camps, which is for a slightly older age group than what we usually offer camps to. So it's something new this summer. It's has more theme-specific activities that are more focused around skill building and life skills. So the first one is leadership. Throughout this camp, they'll get their babysitting certificate. They'll get to learn about what it's like to work with children and get some hands-on experience doing that as well in a camp setting. We also have Chef Nation, which is a cooking and baking program. It's an extension on a program that we've already run this year called Kid Food Nation. So really excited about that. And then also Creative Arts Camp, which will bring many different mediums of art into 1 week of camp, whether that be music, drama, dance, visual arts, all of that will kind of come together into one camp. And then ahead towards next September, what we're looking at doing is reframing how we promote our programming and really putting an emphasis on life skills. All of our programs right now do cater to life skill development, but it might not be explicitly stated, and parents might not even realize that's what we're doing and what their children are getting out of these programs. So making sure that all of our programs are really rooted in life skill development and ensuring that every single program has a really fundamental skill that is supporting the healthy growth and development of the children and youth we work with. So kind of mentioned this a little bit, but right now we're working on really establishing community partnerships with high schools to support engagement, whether that be through Skill for Success, that's going to be starting very soon, creating co-op positions, offering volunteer hours, working with SHSM classes, but just ensuring that we are staying connected with the schools in Middlesex Center as well. And then just finally, this is kind of a model that we are hoping to kind of guide our programming towards, like a cycle of sustainability, to ensure that our programs are self-sufficient and are providing opportunities for youth in a way that supports them and sets them up for future job opportunities, careers, but still in a fun, engaging recreation way like we usually do as well. So this cycle kind of guides them through our programs, leading them to employment and volunteer opportunities in the long run, which I feel is very, very important. So starting off in children's programming, they would get to be a part of our regular children's programming, whether that be through camp, PD days, after school activities, doing recreation, sport, all those fun activities. Then they could transition into our youth programming, which is really the core of what we currently do, which again, that recreation, fun activities that are still rooted in life skill development. Then we could introduce them into leadership, skills, training, development, still again, fun and engaging. And once they kind of reach high school age and express an interest in working with children and youth, we could provide them volunteer opportunities through our children's programming. So that program that they were in when they were young, they can then transition into supporting that. And then from there, of course, they could also transition into employment roles and ensure that we're providing opportunities for those who live in Middlesex Center and are passionate about working with children and youth. So yeah, I don't know if there's anything you want to add there.
I just wanted to highlight that although this is the plan moving forward, we have been testing this plan throughout the time that we've been delivering programs. So a lot of our day camp staff are actually local residents, so we do employ a lot of local youth. In addition, the Skilled for Success project for the summer, just wanted to share that we have filled all of the spots for the Ilderton cohort. So we identified a certain amount of youth that had an interest in this opportunity to be trained and to work with us, not just in terms of gaining skills, but actually becoming ambassadors and helping to inform our programs moving forward. So just wanted to share that, we aren't just planning, we're actually currently moving towards this model, and we've already invested in a lot of youth leadership to this point.
Thank you very much. Before I turn it over to questions, Scott, is there anything you'd like to add to that?
Through the Deputy Mayor, no, nothing further. We had been working with Arden and the team, Whitney and the team there for a few years now at Ilderton Arena. Just noting that this year is a bit of a hiccup year for us because of the renovations happening at the Ilderton Arena. So we work with BGC to help modify things a little bit. But 2026 we'll be back on track. The program's been very successful there in Ilderton, and I think we'll be continuing to work with BGC in the coming futures.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Go ahead, Councillor Coles.
Thank you. Through the Deputy Mayor, sorry, I wanted to say on behalf of the people of Ilderton, thank you so much for the incredible work that you do in our community. You support our children, our youth, our families, and your commitment to creating a safe, inclusive, and encouraging environment does not go unnoticed. I know a lot of parents have talked to me about the work you've done, the after-school programs, the PD day programs. It's very helpful. My own children have participated as well, so I appreciate it. So again, thank you so much for the work you do in our community.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Go ahead, Councillor Coles.
It's okay. Thank you. Thank you through you, Deputy Mayor. I just wanted to say well done. This is a special thing for me, the youth opportunities. And I remember being there when it was the very first day and the kids were invited. And so it's great to see the update and how well it's doing. So thank you. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none. Thank you, ladies. Keep up the good work for us. We certainly appreciate it. And hopefully you'll have a good turnout again this summer, people. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Next on the agenda, we have BMA Management Consulting, and they're coming to us with a long-range financial plan. They are online and are joining us virtually to present the wastewater and stormwater long-range financial plan and the tax long-range financial plan. So whenever you're ready, go ahead.
Thank you, Deputy. Thank you, Deputy Mayor, members of council. Today, I'd like to present the tax-related long-range financial plan covering the period 2025 to 2034. So go to the next slide, please. Just up front, I just want to reiterate that this plan is not a budget. It's based on assumptions which could change. However, the intent of the plan is to serve as a strategic financial roadmap to help guide sustainable fiscal decisions. The primary goal of the long-range financial plan is to balance sustainability, flexibility, and vulnerability, which I'll talk about in a few minutes. The plan does address some of the key financial challenges, such as limited revenue sources, aging infrastructure and replacement costs, rising expenses, operating costs and service demands, and economic uncertainty and external risks. Next slide, please. So the foundation of the long-range financial plan is based on three financial planning pillars. First being sustainability, which is maintaining municipal services without sudden tax hikes, ensuring stable, predictable tax policies. The next pillar is flexibility, which is optimizing debt management for responsible borrowing, maintain financial agility through the use of reserves to respond to economic changes. And then the final foundation is vulnerability, which is reducing the reliance on external funding, which is unpredictable, and mitigating risks through strong reserves and financial controls. Next slide, please. So the guiding principles that we used in establishing the plan is to ensure reasonable degree of tax stability. Resources should be distributed fairly between current and future ratepayers, taxpayers. Programs and services must be maintained at desired levels. Reserves and debt capacity should align with infrastructure replacement cycles. And finally, balancing between capital investment and affordability. So the financial strategy includes capital management, which is prioritizing infrastructure renewal and long-term investments. It includes a debt management component, which is responsible use of debt management while maintaining municipal limits. Reserve management, strengthening financial reserves, which I'll talk about. And then finally, intergenerational equity, which is ensuring that current taxpayers don't bear the entire financial burden for future investments. Next slide. So in terms of balancing affordability and future needs, you can see from this chart that Middlesex Centre has one of the lowest property tax rates amongst peer municipalities. And on the right-hand side, what we also show is that the property taxes as a percentage of average household income, we did a calculation, and your average household income is actually higher than the average. So the taxes as a percentage of household income is also amongst the lowest of the peer municipalities. Next slide. So summary of challenges that we saw. First of all, demographic shifts, which will be affecting service demands, especially for seniors. It's an aging population. Limited revenue sources, which restricts your financial flexibility. You'll see later on in the presentation, tax, which is your main source of revenue, and it will be increasing in proportion to the total revenues. There's a pressure to keep taxes low despite the rising costs. There's been delayed reassessment. You're still working on 2016 market values. There is an infrastructure gap, which we'll talk about, which will require a phase-in strategy because of the size of the gap and recognizing ratepayer affordability. There's fragmented capital reserves, which limits your financial flexibility in terms of addressing corporate priorities. Development charges, they're insufficient for all growth-related expenditures. There's a large component that benefits current ratepayers, although it's a growth-related capital expenditure, but it has to be paid for from taxes. Simultaneously, servicing new growth and replacing aging assets is causing pressures as well. And lastly, the economic uncertainty, things like tariffs, the market volatility and legislative changes all have a negative impact, potentially. Financial sustainability and asset management, they're interconnected. Data from the asset management plan is used to inform the annual budget, and proactively managing the assets through the use of the asset management plan helps reduce financial vulnerability. Go to the next slide, please. So you see here from the asset management plan, what we were able to derive from that is that there's an asset management, they set a target that is required just for the replacement of your current assets. And the target, asset management target is you should be contributing to capital reserves $21.9 million annually. And your total contributions, you can see at the top of the chart there, your total contributions are about 12.5 annually. So there's an estimated annual funding gap for the replacement of your existing assets of about $9.4 million. So that's quite significant. So in fact, your tax levy right now, just to kind of put it in perspective, your tax levy is 25.7 million. And this gap, to close this gap, would require an additional 36.5% increase on the total levy, which is obviously unsustainable. So in the plan, you'll see that we were recommending increasing the asset management capital reserve contributions to target the asset management plan over a 15-year period. Next slide. The capital reserves, they're not solely used, currently they're not solely used for replacement of existing assets. They're also being used to fund the growth-related component that isn't recovered from development charges. And if you look at the average over the next 10 years, there's a requirement, an annual requirement of about $5.3 million. And like I say, there's no current contributions to growth. It's all to the asset management, related to asset management. So there's a funding gap for the growth-related capital projects, about 5.4 million. And again, it's a significant increase on the tax levy. So we are also recommending that that be phased in over a 15-year period as well. Next slide. So this is a summary of the operating budget based on the assumptions that we built into the plan. The projected operating budget grows from about 38.5 million to 67.5 million by 2034 over the next 10 years. Most of that increase, in fact, almost half of that increase is, which is 13.2 million, is associated with the increase in reserve transfers that I talked about for the capital replacement and growth-related capital assets. Next slide. So this is, like I say, you have limited financial resources. So this shows a summary of the revenues to fund those expenditures that I just talked about. And you can see from this chart, from 2025, the proportion of tax revenues to your total budget is 68%. And because that is the pretty much the only revenue source that's controlled by the municipality, that has to be used to increase the expenditures to the capital reserves that I talked about, and a good portion of the increased operating costs. So the proportion of tax revenue in 2034 to the total budget is about 80%. So it increases quite significantly. Next slide. So this shows what I just talked about in terms of revenues of the tax levy. It starts at 25.7 million. It grows to 53 million by 2034. What that represents is an annual increase of about 8.4% in tax revenues. We're projecting that you will have assessment growth in the area of about 1%. So taking into consideration the assessment growth of 1%, the impact on existing taxpayers would be about 7.4% annually over the next 10 years. In terms of the capital budget, the asset management capital reserve funded projects is about 116 million over the 10-year period, which is about 11.6 million per year. And that represents about 50% of the total capital budget. And then, like I say, there's some growth-related capital projects that aren't funded from development charges. That is $51.8 million in total over the 10-year period, which is about 5.1 million annually. And that represents about 22% of the capital budget. And then there's some DC reserves, 45 million over the next 10 years that are required. There's other reserve funds that are used to fund capital projects, about 16.2 million. And then in 2034, there's a large project coming on stream, and there's a need to issue debt of about 3 million in 2034. Next slide. So right now, the municipality has 4 individual capital reserves, one solely for the purpose of roads, one for general vehicles, fire, and facilities. And the capital reserve funds are, as I mentioned, are used not only solely for the capital replacement needs, but also growth-related projects are funded from the capital reserves. So in terms of our observations on this, that limits your flexibility, having separate capital reserves. Most municipalities have one centralized capital reserve. And then the reason for that, it increases your flexibility, and you can fund the assets based on corporate priorities rather than funding availability within an individual reserve. And also, looking at reserves, it does lack transparency. There's no growth targets or capital replacement targets that you can readily detect from the reserves, because it's all rolled into one reserve. Next slide. So what we're recommending is that you set up 3 separate reserve funds. One for asset management, which is solely for the replacement of the existing asset replacements, and that's consolidating all of those separate reserves that I just talked about. Setting up a new growth-related capital reserves, and that reserve would be used to cover new infrastructure that's not funded from development charges. And then finally, a third reserve for efficiency improvements. And that would be for strategic investments that could potentially be incorporated in future capital budgets. So in terms of debt management strategy, what we're recommending is that you prioritize debt borrowing for growth-related projects. And this would help maintain intergenerational equity, because what you're doing is you're going to be spreading some of the costs over future generations that are beneficiaries of the service. And we're also recommending to keep levels below your current policy target of 17% of own source revenues, with an absolute cap of 25% in accordance with the provincial regulations. Next slide. So the key recommendations in terms of the long-range financial plan is, in terms of tax strategy, implement an 8.4% annual tax levy with a 7.4% property tax increase. Reserve management, consolidate the capital reserves into three main categories that I just talked about. And infrastructure funding, closing that $14.8 million annual infrastructure gap over a 15-year period. And debt management, prioritizing debt for growth-related capital projects and keeping below your self-imposed policy limitation of 17%. Next slide. So that's the end of the talks, and I'm open to any questions if anyone has any.
Thank you. If you could just stay on the line, I'm going to turn this over to Tiffany now for her to give us her report on this, and then at that time I'll entertain questions after that. Tiff?
So through you, Deputy Mayor, at this point, did you want me to discuss the tax, or would you like BMA to complete the water and wastewater and stormwater presentation and then questions on both at the end, and then I report?
Yeah, I think we'll do it that way so we can ask questions on both at the end.
Perfect. So at this point, then I would direct it back to Jim to begin the water, wastewater, and storm. So the long range financial plans consists of two separate plans. But if anyone has any specific question on the tax before we do the next one, we could answer that now, or just keep all questions to the end. The plans are very similar. Okay.
Yeah, I think we'll just have the questions at the end, and then everybody has all the information, and we'll go from there. So Jim, if you want to continue on, you can continue on, and then we'll go from there.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So this is the 2025 to 2034 water, wastewater, and stormwater long-range financial plan. We'll go to the next slide. So in terms of preparing the financial plan, what we did, we started off with established guiding principles, and they are ensuring a reasonable degree of stability and predictability in the rate burden. We wanted to help ensure that there's a fair sharing in the distribution of resources between current and future ratepayers. Excuse me. We wanted to maintain programs and services at their desired levels, and finally balance the capital investment requirements with ratepayer affordability. So you can see from this chart, there's financial challenges that we've identified, and Middlesex Center has these financial challenges, and also other municipalities in Ontario. And there's a growing infrastructure gap that we recognize. There's regulatory pressures and increasing operating costs, which pose risks that require some careful financial planning. And the plan provides solutions to mitigate these risks while maintaining affordability. Next slide. So just to start off, what we did is we wanted to look at ratepayer affordability in terms of water and wastewater. And you can see from this chart that the average household income and the current 2024 residential water and wastewater rates, you're using a 200 cubic meter prototype property. Your rates based on that would be 1,862. And you can see that in comparison to the other municipalities, your rates are currently higher than the other municipalities. However, taking into consideration average household income, which is also higher, than the peer municipalities. The affordability metric, which is the water and wastewater costs as a percentage of average household income, is 1.1%, which is in line with the peer average. Next slide. Similar to the tax, there's an infrastructure gap that was identified in the asset management plan for water, wastewater, and storm. So your current contributions, you can see from this chart, 2025 budget, we saw that there's a current contribution in water of 1,490,000. The asset management target is almost 2.5 million for water. So there's an infrastructure gap of $1 million. In terms of wastewater, there's an infrastructure gap of about $2.9 million. And then storm, an infrastructure gap of about $1.7 million. So obviously these are large infrastructure gaps, and it's not feasible to cover these off in 1 year. So what we're suggesting, similar to the tax financial plan, is to close these gaps over a 15-year period, which would provide financial sustainability and maintain repair affordability. Next slide. So this shows the capital reserve. In terms of capital reserve, the strategy is to keep a minimum reserve balance target of 5 to 10% of asset replacement costs. And you can see the water in the top left-hand corner. You're currently within that range of 5 to 10%. And in fact, it grows by 2034. And then in wastewater, you're slightly below, but the plan shows a gradual increase in the reserve, and you would be within that 5 to 10% by about 2030. And then stormwater, you're not quite over the 10-year period, you wouldn't quite be in that 5 to 10% target. However, stormwater, it's relatively new assets that we're talking about, and they have an extremely long life. And so I don't think that there's a lot of risk in that. Next slide. Growth-related capital costs are not funded from the development charges. We're recommending that they be funded from external debentures or internally financed if there's sufficient reserve funds available to internally finance them. The reason for that is to maintain that intergenerational equity, because these growth-related projects not only benefit current ratepayers, but they also benefit future ratepayers. And so by issuing debentures, that would spread the cost to future ratepayers. Any new assets internally funded would be paid back to the reserve from the operating budget, including interest. And if debt charges as they decline due to the retirement of debt, savings should be used to accelerate contributions to the asset management reserve. And then similar to the tax, debt charges as a percentage of own source revenue should not exceed 17%. So this is looking at the first on the left-hand side, the top chart is water, wastewater, storm debt charges as a percentage of own source revenue. And what we did is in accordance with the recommendations that I just talked about, there is some long-term debt that we issued for growth-related projects. And you can see from the chart, when you look at the total utilities, you are below that 17% limitation throughout the 10-year period. And then on the right-hand side, it just shows the actual total debt outstanding. And the reason it's growing is because we're issuing debt on behalf of the growth-related capital projects. So the results of that, the annual increase is projected to be 4% for water, 6.5% for wastewater, and 6.5% for stormwater. So the blended impact to a ratepayer would be about 5.6% over the annual increase over the 10-year period. So if you look at the chart on the bottom, assuming 180 cubic meter water user. That increase that I just talked about in 2026 would amount to about $8.61 on a monthly basis. Next slide. So key recommendations, compliance with the provincial laws and financial transparency. We increased the operating budget to make sure that there are sufficient operating funds to deal with that. Ratepayer affordability, the annual increases are reasonable considering the infrastructure gap. And we did a phase in recognizing ratepayer affordability. The capital reserve fund management, we're increasing the contributions to come up with the asset management plan target recommendations. Debt financing, we recommend using debt financing for the growth-related capital projects. And then infrastructure sustainability, prioritizing existing assets and phased-in funding approach. And that's the so in conclusion, we're using a balanced approach to maintain ratepayer affordability, ensure financial sustainability, and have sufficient funds for infrastructure renewal. The target, according to the asset management plan, if you follow the plan, the long-range financial plan, the targets would be achieved by 2040. And that would also, by doing that, would ensure intergenerational equity. That's the end of the presentation. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Jim. Tiffany, will now turn to you, and you can go ahead, and then we'll ask questions after that. Thank you.
So thank you, and through you, Mayor, Deputy Mayor Brennan. First, I want to say thank you to all the team members at BMA, Jim and his team. Thank you so much for this detailed information, as well as to our team here at Middlesex Center. This was a cross-departmental project, and all teams were involved. And a special thank you to our financial analyst, who was the leader within this project. So there's a lot of information here to process, and I understand that there are multiple plans, as well as a lot of increases that are being thrown at council today. So first, I want to say that this is a significant undertaking, and there's a lot of information. So please feel free to ask as many questions either today or ongoing. This plan will now be part of something that we'll be bringing to council consistently, and especially through our budget process. One of the items I want to highlight before jumping into the long-range financial plan is the water financial plan. You'll notice in my report, as well as throughout the BMA financial reports that they've presented, the water financial plan is an actual requirement that from the Safe Drinking Waters Act. And the municipality has met all the requirements as required under that act. And that plan is included within the water, wastewater, and stormwater. And given the resolutions in front of council, if approved, will be sent to the ministry as required. I will not dive too deep into that water financial plan, but should you have questions, please feel free to ask. So overall, these long-range financial plans, the water, wastewater, stormwater, and the tax base, is a critical tool for our long-term planning and to assist in informed decision-making. When council is reviewing these, this does not mean that today that you're making the decision to increase taxes at the amount annually that's being presented, or to increase our water, wastewater, and storm. It is a tool and a guide, and it's going to help with making those decisions today and into the future that impact our community. The plans today incorporates our development charge study, our asset management plan, our strategic plan, as well as a lot of other master plans and department-specific plans. The information gathered were part of those, as well as through discussions with our corporate leaders here at Middlesex Center. So it includes things to date. However, there are things that have not been analyzed because we don't know what the future entails. Things like tariffs. We did discuss this briefly, and it is included as part of our 2025 budget package. But as we all know, we don't know what the impact of those will be or how they continue to change. So that is something that you're taking the plan and then you're applying the current lens and what's happening in the economy. And we will make sure that those changes or impacts are then discussed with council. Both the plans are based on a 15-year strategy, and that is closing that infrastructure gap that you'll hear about even more when we have the updated asset management plan being presented to council shortly, and what you've heard about for the last 10 years. We have a target of about 15 years. Once again, this does not mean that council is committing to that 15 years, but we needed to set a target that seemed reasonable with reasonable increases based on the data that we do have. One thing to keep in mind when you're looking at these long-range financial plans and the targets being set is that is based on our current levels of service. And so that is the level of services being provided to our community today that impacts any of our operational teams as well as the capital projects that we're doing. Any changes to those level of service discussed through council and say through our asset management plan will also impact this plan. The plan is built on assumptions. The assumptions were based on information that we gathered from our teams, as well as a lot of historical information. And those details are included in the plans. But any questions, please feel free to ask. The big thing that I do want to really stress in this is the debt requirements. So the municipality does have its internal debt policy and the limit of 17% of our own source revenues. This is based off of the provincial annual repayment limit. We received, council received a report on that about a couple months ago, which outlined what it was for Middlesex Centre currently. That is something that we will continuously update so council's aware. It is 25% of our own source revenues, and internally it's 17%. That 17% can be changed by council, and it would be set within our policy. However, it's important to remember what those impacts would be on our ratepayers if we change that 17%, as well as what type of borrowing interest rates that we'd be offered. However, once again, that's a decision that we would provide a lot of information should we come to that. Included in the report is a updated annual repayment limit. This is an estimated annual repayment limit as we are going into the future for 15 years. So I have done a projection on what our own source revenues could look like, as well as what those payments at a specific interest rate. Obviously, those are all assumptions. This is something that we would bring back should we look at entering into any debt agreement. And then the other item I really wanted to stress with council was that communication and reporting aspect. There's a lot of information here. We need to continue to report back to council and to the public on any of those impacts. And an example of that would be, you've seen what the rates could look like for water, wastewater, and storm. Annually, the Director of Public Works and Engineering, working with the corporate services team, provides council with a projected or an estimated increase that council would then approve annually. Now we will be basing it off of this plan. However, we will be looking at anything internally as well as externally within the economic environment for the population. If in that report it's recommended 5% across the board, and council decides, no, we're going to do 1% or no percent, the impact of those decisions will be discussed. So we will go back to this report and continuously tie it in so that we would be looking at, instead of a 15-year payback, maybe it's 17 or maybe it's 20. But that information will be provided so you're making really informed decisions on what that would impact our future and current ratepayers. And additionally, during our annual budget cycle, this information will be top of mind. There will be sections within our budget booklet that will be expanded to include this long-range financial plan, as well as any financial forecasting that we will be doing based on the plan, as well as any changes. At this point, I will open it up to council to ask any questions of either myself, any of our team members, if it's anything specific to their departments, or BMA.
Thank you, Tiffany. At this time, I will open it up to council members for questions. Councillor Arts, go ahead.
Green. Oh, I'm green. I'm waiting for permission to talk.
Go ahead.
Okay. General question, back to the DCs and the tax rate. It's more for BMA. BMA is probably one of the prime consultancies in Ontario and sees a lot of municipalities and what they look like, and you interact with many councils. When I read the newspaper, especially like the Toronto Star, London Free Press to a lesser degree, the whole thrust at the provincial level appears to be reduce DCs to municipalities, even though they're not covering costs today, reduce fees to municipalities, anything to spur growth. So that means all of these costs are going to be driven down into the tax base. And we're the front line on that. So we'll be taking those complaints versus the province. But I'm turning over to BMA now. Is this your perception as well?
Are you there, Jim? Did we lose him?
Okay. I can track my question.
Okay, sorry, I was muted. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Oh, thanks, Deputy Mayor. Yeah, in terms of the question, municipalities are obviously looking at this challenge and advocating to the government that it's not affordable to municipalities. It's not feasible, and there has to be ways to keep the municipalities whole. But it is a problem that all municipalities would be facing if they weren't kept whole. A significant problem.
Follow up.
Yeah, just a follow up. So on that green. Oh, there we go. So I think it's, I don't see anything changing for a number of years. This seems to be the current Conservative Party thrust. Everything I read is that. So we have to be cognizant of that as a council and really internally focus on what we can do. And I think communication is important to our residents, although I don't know how much they're going to listen to us that we're doing as well as anybody. That doesn't fly. So I don't have any other comment and I don't have any answers. It's just we got to make our own plans and do the best we can.
Councilor Arts. Don't touch it. Okay. Through Deputy Mayor, I had a question on the water and wastewater. It said partially recovered from a 2.2% annual growth that was based on 50% of growth projections from the DC study. But for stormwater, you don't have, how come it's different? Is that because those assets are newer? Like the formula is not the same for projected growth. That's the first question.
Do you want to take that, Jim?
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. The basis for recovering stormwater is not consumption based. It's number of properties, and so we use the property counts that were projected. 50% of the property counts.
Okay.
Yeah. And through you, Deputy Mayor, this is probably for Tiffany. When all this stuff is done, it still hasn't factored in development charge credits, and it hasn't factored in if there's a credit for 100,000, the municipality has to put 100,000 also into that fund. So basically, whatever credit we get, we're out double that. So that's not in here at all, then, is it?
So through your Deputy Mayor, it is as an assumption within our tax base long-range financial plan. So we do consider that an expense with respect to funding those development charge exemptions. So it is based on limited information, as the province, as Councilor Burrs has pointed out, could start exempting a lot more. And so then our assumptions are based on like our current data. So that could also change, but there is a small amount of an expense overall for funding the development charge exemptions.
Thank you. Through you, Deputy Mayor. So I appreciate that we're being proactive in planning. And thank you, Jim and Tiffany, for your presentations this morning. I think the funding gap is concerning, and our residents are already expressing to us the frustration with the cost of our water rates here in Middlesex Center. So one of my questions I have is regarding the ratepayer affordability and comparative metrics. So Jim, it's a question for you. I'd like to know about the peers that are listed here, Pelham, Springwater, Essex. Can you tell me why these are our peers and not our neighboring municipalities, please?
We picked those peers in conjunction with staff, and they are municipalities that have similar infrastructure, similar number of consumption, and ratepayers.
Thank you.
Anything further? Oh, you want to hit your mic, please?
Thank you. Through the deputy mayor, just clarification, Tiffany. Tax increases 7.4%, wastewater, water, and stormwater 5.6% increase. The next 10 years at 13% each year at this point.
Yeah, so through your deputy mayor, yes, so the increases outlined, yes, those would be what we'd be looking at annually, that we have to reach those targets. There is an amount that the BMA team has included for the growth aspect. So those could be tweaked every year depending on how much growth we actually have. So the plans are very conservative, looking at say 50% of what our official plan growth targets are. So that could reduce the actual increases required. And any of the assumptions built on the expense side, if we come in a lot lower, then same thing, it could be a lot lower than what we're putting out there. And that's that reporting piece that we'd be doing. But yes, those are the increases annually.
Just a comment, I think this municipality has been proactive. Yes, our water rates have been higher, but I think we have increased our reserve funds substantially in the last 10 years, something like from 50 million to 68 million or something like that. So we have been proactive, and I think, yes, it's a lot of increases, but I think we have to continue to be proactive to ensure that our residents have the level of service that they have today. So with that, I'd like to thank Jim and Tiffany for all this. And I know we will be, as we go forward, Tiffany will be bringing stuff back to us, and you'll have a final say at the time it comes to us. So thank you very much for everything, and we'll carry on.
Thank you.
Okay. We have a motion that report CPS 2025 long-range financial plans be received, and that council approve the 2025-2034 water financial plan included in the attached water and wastewater stormwater long-range financial plan prepared for the municipal drinking water system license renewal. Financial Plan 052-301A in accordance with the Ontario Regulation 45307. The water financial plan applies to the municipality of Middlesex Center, 3 drinking water system licenses, Middlesex Center Distribution System 052101, Melrose Drinking Water System 052103, and Burr Drinking Water System 052104. And that council approves the 2025-2034 water, wastewater, and stormwater long-range financial plan attached to this report. And that council approve the 2025-2035 tax long-range financial plan attached to this report. And that the municipal treasurer submit the water financial plan to the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks, and the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing in accordance with the Safe Water Drinking Act 2002, and that the municipal treasurer issue notice of the water financial availability plan availability as prescribed by the Ontario Regulation 45307 on the municipality of Middlesex Center website, and that staff be directed to review the recommendations in the attached long-range financial plans and report back to council during the annual budget development, and further that staff be directed to include an annual update to the long-range plans in the annual budget booklet to promote openness and transparency to the public. And I hope Mayor DeVite's back soon. Could I have someone move that? Councillor Arts, seconded. Councillor Coles, any questions? All in favor? Thank you. Okay, we'll now move on to the minutes of May 21st council meeting. You've had those in your agenda. Any errors or omissions or questions? If not, a motion to approve them. Councillor Burrs, seconded by Councillor Coles. All in favor? So moved. We'll now move on to the consent agenda. We're item 7.10 regarding the Bear Creek drain culvert will be pulled from the consent agenda for further discussion later in the meeting. Are there any questions or anything anyone wishes to ask on the consent agenda? Go ahead, Councilor Bears.
Green light. Through you, your worship, to Scott, we're going to get a tour of that addition to the Wellness Center eventually, right?
Through the chair, yes, absolutely. I was there yesterday, talked to Natalie from Epic, and we're working on those arrangements right now.
She's the chief operating officer or whatever now.
Not sure what her title is, but yeah, she oversees the place.
It's looking good.
Yep, it looks fantastic inside. I think council will be pleased.
Arts, go ahead.
Through your deputy mayor, this is about 7.1 Protect Ontario. I got a sore head from banging it on the table reading this one. Like, there's nothing in here that's gonna help us. Like, it's gonna cost us, and I don't know who comes up with this stuff, but it was very frustrating reading. Thank you.
We'll ask Rob Cascaden, Director of Public Works and Engineering, who's in attendance, to talk to us about the Bear Creek Culvert 2025 construction tender.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So yeah, this is a short one. This is just for the award of the Bear Creek Drain culvert replacement. That's located at 11554 Ivan Drive, crossing the Bear Creek Drain. So we went into bids and tenders, and we had 8 contractors close on the project. As you can see, there's a list there. The original recommendation in the report was to award to Shilson Excavating, but was based on some follow-up with references and some discussions with the contractor. Since then, Spreed and Associates have followed up with the contractor, and based on those discussions and their ability to complete the work, the decision has been made to move forward with the second lowest bidder, who is All Season Excavating. So the motion needs to be amended so that it will read that report PWE 35 2025 Bear Creek Drain Culvert 2025 construction tender award be received, and that the construction of the Bear Creek Drain Culvert 2025 be awarded to the second lowest tender bid submission received, All Season Excavating, in the amount of $185,500 plus HST. The primary or the largest assessed property is Steve Bloomfield, and he's been in communication with Spreed and Dan over this, so that he's aware of the impact. We're moving forward with the second contractor to ensure the work gets done in a timely manner. So happy to answer any questions.
Councilor Shipley makes that recommendation, seconded by Councilor Arts. Any questions? All in favor? Thank you. Thanks, Rob. Next staff report. We've already dealt with that one on the long-term financial things. There are no notices of motion. Correspondence, that correspondence items 10.1 to 10.6 be received for information. Any questions on those? Motion to move. Councilor Cates, Councilor Bears. All in favor? So moved. I do have a county councilor or a county council update. It'll be the May 27th one. County Council has entered into a new lease agreement with York Developments on the county building for another year, since we will be there until such time as the new building is constructed. Middlesex County is also undergoing a good road safety audit. It's just to take a look at what roads are causing us problems and what we can do to alleviate those. The programs and support services, the county gets $753,360 per year. Nursing, this is for Strathmere Lodge. Nursing and personal care, they get 6.5 million per year. Other accommodations, 3.7 million per year. And that's what the county receives for its Strathmere Lodge. Funding for from the county results in about $19.54 per day for residents, and the residents pay about $20, and the province pays $58. Emergency management update, emergency support unit 3 trailers. They have 3 trailers across the county, and they have upcoming training on June 24th and 25th from 9 to 4:30 both days. One, I believe, is going to be at the Coldstream Fire Hall. So if anybody's interested, we'll fill you in on the date coming up there. Update on Bill 17, Protect Ontario by Building Faster and Smarter, changes, limiting studies, official plan updates, some changes, some good, some bad. New changes may not address township needs or requirements or cash flow spaces. Systems could shift, and this cost could lower some costs of the lower tiers, but let's just see where that plays out. Thank you. Is there any other business that any councilor wishes to bring forward? If not, we will be going into closed session. That council municipal Middlesex Center adjourned to closed session at 10:38 pursuant to section 239(2) of the Municipal Act 201 as recommended to discuss the following matters. One item pursuant to section 239(2)C regarding a proposed or pending acquisition or disposal of land by the municipality or local board, Ward 1. One item pursuant to section 239(2)C regarding proposed or pending acquisition or disposal of land of a municipality or local board, and section 239(2)K regarding a position, plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of municipality or local boards, economic development. We'll wait for us to go off line streaming, and then we'll could I have a mover or a second to that? Shipley and Coles, thank you. We'll wait to go offline, so we'll take a 2-minute break while that happens.